Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans. And yes, I'm going to have a rant, okay? And this rant is aimed at the major political party, the ANC, and the wannabes like the BLF and the EFF, okay? Now, the videos I have posted earlier today clearly reflect the absolutely horrible level of crime that is taking place right now in South Africa. Crime is obviously way out of control. Now, the video attached here is very interesting, and it actually is almost like looking into the future for the black African population, okay? But before we get to that, continue with my rant. Okay, now, black Africans, as I've said in the past, have this violent streak. You can see it in the videos I posted today. They have no respect or regard for human life, and clearly, and this is where the video attached comes in, when the Chinese start taking control of South Africa, and they will. They're ready. They're ready in. They're there. They're there. When they take over South Africa, they are not going to put up with the sort of shit that you're handing out to the mainly white population, but also to your own people. Let me tell you something. Those Chinese police stations that have been set up in the Cape, they're there for a reason, okay? That's the starting point of where China takes over. Now, in the video that's attached, you will see what's happening in Kenya today regarding the Chinese. The Chinese are blatantly racist against them. They actually have apartheid. Did you know that? They have apartheid in Kenya. Kenyans are not allowed to sit in the same car as the Chinese, okay? They use different toilets. Do you remember that somewhere in the past, some distant past, where you had blankers and near blankers? Well, that has come back to Kenya. And it's got nothing to do with white people. It's the Chinese who are doing it. And if you don't believe me, watch the friggin' video that follows. Now, let me tell you something that's different between the whites, who you keep on attacking as racist and whatever. You have seen nothing yet. The whites in South Africa are peace-loving. They want to get on with the job. They want to get on with the African population. And you are putting that all at risk. It's like a smoking gun. It's just waiting to explode. And when it explodes, believe me, the white population are not going to just sit down and take it. That's point number one. Now, point number two is that the Chinese are very different to the white. They can be just as violent, and they can be just as they can be more violent than the black Africans, and they will be. If you start doing the sort of shit that you're doing to the whites when the Chinese start taking over the country, they're going to throw you into the sea. And you won't be able to get back on the beach, you'll just drown, okay? Because they won't even bother wasting bullets on you. Now, this video that follows is your future, because the Chinese will take over South Africa, and you will follow the same path as the Kenyans are on right now. And you will be saluting President Xi, not Ramaphosa, because the Chinese will run your government. Welcome to your future. Here it is in the video. And please remember to subscribe to be kept informed. Take care, guys. Bye for now.
On to another big story that has sent shockwaves across the country and generated a lot of discussion on social media and beyond. An expose done by a Standard Group reporter on what goes on behind closed doors at the Standard Gauge Railway as far as the workers are concerned. I'm just about to have a conversation with Paul Wafula here in studio. He's a reporter who unearthed some of the things that go on, especially as far as the local workers, the Kenyan workers are concerned at the SGR. But quickly, let's go through some of the complaints that have been raised by staff who work at the SGR. One of them majorly being the pay disparities between the Kenya and the Chinese workers. Kenyan workers, they are saying that they earn sometimes even a quarter of what their Chinese counterparts do, yet they are doing the same job. The staff have always complained about how the Chinese are taking over the jobs. Mostly when Kenyans are fired, they're always replaced by the Chinese. Of course, making the number bigger, increasing the number of Chinese workers working at the SGR. More Chinese replacing the Kenyan staff, of course, and the poor working conditions have been mentioned. Paul Wafula will be telling us more about some of the conversations he had with the staff of SGR, especially the Kenyan workers, and what they're going through as far as the poor working conditions that they are experiencing are concerned. The Kenyan drivers have also said they're sidelined. In fact, from that particular expose, it has come out that Kenyan drivers have only had to operate this train once, and this is when it was being launched in Madaraka, carrying President Uhuru Kenyatta. Since then, no Kenyan has had to operate this again. It has been left for the Chinese drivers to do so. Now, workers earning less than what's reported at the KRA, saying that they've been receiving different P9 forms, and it would seem from the allegations that the Chinese or the CRBC is paying the Kenyan workers less than what has indeed been reported to the Kenya Revenue Authority, or KRA if you want, and of course unwritten racist rules like you cannot sit on the same table with the Chinese, you cannot be in the same van with the Chinese. John Paul Wafula will be giving us more details of some of the things he found out while he was doing research and working on this particular story. Let's quickly take a look at the economics of the SGR. This is definitely one of the biggest infrastructure projects Kenya has ever had to undertake. It would mean that Kenyans will be paying for this for 40 years or more. We'll be getting more details from John Paul. And of course, a lot of questions have been asked by many on the amount of money that was spent on this particular project. Does it make economical sense? Does it have return on investment at the end of the day? The amount of money that Kenyans will be paying back? Let's decipher all that with Paul Wafula. Thank you very much. Good to have you in studio. That story that you worked on is still being talked about, has rattled so many feathers. How does it make you feel at this point in time as an investigative journalist?
It is a sad story, Akisa. For me, you will expect that at this point in time, the list that will have come through from the government, at least, is to launch immediate investigations, to be able to establish what really is going down at the SGR. You'll expect that now that, we've been able to present evidence, photographs, details of the contract, and everything is out there in the public domain. An investigator has a very good place to start from, and you have so many employees, you can be able to go down and find out. But instead, what is happening, even as I heard today, the staff are being now rounded up. They are trying to find out who spoke to the reporters. They are trying to find out how to make sure that now mobile phones are not allowed anywhere near the trains. And so instead of really dealing with the issues, they are trying now to make sure that whatever is happening will never come out. So this is really sad. And for me, the story came out because I had actually experienced part of this, but I thought it was a one-off. Because Akisa, we were invited to go for one of the rides to go to Mombasa. Yeah. And we arrived at the Mombasa terminus in Miritini. Then we got out of the station because we had come on on an official trip. They had made it exclusive for us, some of the cabins. So we arrived at Mombasa, and then there were two vans that were waiting for us. And the three of us who were Africans, of course, we saw our colleagues, so some of them also journalists and so on and so forth, but they're Chinese. Some of them are staff of the China Road who are Chinese. So So they entered a van, and because we had the same badges, we also joined them. We thought we should join them. Then all of them got out of the van.
Yeah.
So we were left 3 of us in the van. We didn't understand what was going on. Yeah, then eventually more Kenyans were brought on board. And I think because they realized we are journalists, they may, to avoid maybe a bad PR, they gave us other people that we went with. And then the Chinese boarded their own train, their own van.
All right.
Yeah.
We're getting back to this conversation shortly. I want us to engage Francis Atwoli, the Secretary General of Court. I understand he doesn't have much time, so it would be best if we speak to him first. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us here on KTN News Desk. From what Paul Wafula, the journalist who worked on that expose, says, this is something that has been going on for a while, and currently speaking, they're being victimized as they just try to seek and understand who spoke to the media about this. I mean, as a Court Secretary General, it would be interesting to hear what you have to say about this story.
Thank you very much, Takisa. What I want to say is this, that SGR was a total rip-off from a Kenyan taxpayer by all standards, be it in terms of employment, be it in terms of arrangements, be it in terms of expenses that Kenyans will have to pay for so many, many years to come. And this was properly put in yesterday's standard. Every Kenyan knows that here, Kenya, indeed, we lost a really chance of. And it is not a modern railway. We expected to have a railway driven by electricity or generated power, like what is happening now in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, where they have modern trains, fast-moving trains. Lastly, on employment, we, a Central Organization of Trade Unions in Kenya, we have an agreement with our brothers in all Chinese Federation of Trade Unions in Kenya to make sure that any contractor who is given a job here, he must allow his or her members of staff to be unionized by Kenyan unions. But the problem we are having is the Ministry of Labor. Because the Ministry of Labor, together with the immigration, they are supposed to vet those people who are coming to be employed here. And they are supposed to orient these contractors to tell them that here, these are our labor laws. And they must be followed to the latter. If you gotten a job in China or outside there, you will have to work as per their internal domesticated labor laws. This is not the case here. They have left all these contractors, be it in Jiangxi, contractors or those construction companies of Chinese, the Ministry of Labor, and without labor inspectors who are supposed to inspect to see whether those workers are being exploited or whether they are being paid in accordance with our own Kenyan labor laws. Nobody inspects these people. And these people have freedom to do whatever they want. I was surprised when I read when I saw it in yesterday's papers, that just a person can order workers to lie on their stomachs at a workplace, and nobody is raising a finger. We have already written to the Minister of Labor. We have already written to our union, our affiliate, Kenya Union of Railways, to make sure that those workers are properly supervised. The other thing here that is very much worrying is the ministers of labor being appointed to the Ministry of Labor. They are not serious ministers. Sometimes they take an SSF as if it is the Ministry of Labor, instead of concentrating on labor inspection, occupational health and safety issues that concern workers in various industries and factories, and they don't carry out that inspection.
So then are you saying that the Ministry of Labor and the government as a whole is letting down workers as far as this story is concerned?
Absolutely. You ask them what immigration is doing is bad. How do they allow Chinese? How do they allow Chinese to be the drivers of this local locomotive? These are diesel locomotive engines. This can be driven by anybody. Why should they allow? This is not a job that requires an expert to do. Why should they allow lay Chinese drivers to be driving these things? And during the opening, we were cheated with our own Kenyans that, they are the people who will be, the Kenyans will be in charge of the SGR. And now we are being told it is in the hands of Chinese. What sort of the agreement did Kenyan government do with the Chinese? This exploitation, we are not going to allow it. We have, when we heard of this and after reading yesterday's newspapers, We have also written to His Excellency the President seeking audience with him on this particular project.
For speaking to us, Francis Atwoli, Secretary General of COTU, saying they are already running with this, just trying to protect the workers who work at the SGR. He says they've already written to the Ministry of Labour, they've written to the Ministry of Immigration, as well as President Uhuru Kenyatta, just seeking audience with him to try and understand why things like this that should not be seen at this point in time really are happening in the country. Talking about discrimination and the poor working conditions, what are these conditions these people are working under?
Akisa, you know, because you have been employed and you want to be able to sort of be respectful to employer, you find that first what they did is that they came out and got Kenyans who are below 30. Most of them, maybe they are just not done more than one job. Maybe that is their first job or the second job. And they're still naive, so they will follow anything. And because they have not worked anywhere else, they will think that is normal. But then as the year progressed, they have realized that there's something that is not adding up because, I mean, this is Kenya and so to speak. So Akisa, you have a situation whereby they're inside, behind the walls, you will find they have their own restaurants and then apartments. Which have been built by the taxpayer. So, of course, when you are done with your trip, you'll come back and then you'll either have a meal or as you wait for your next assignment or the following day. But you arrive in the place and the Chinese cannot sit with you on the same table. I've never been anywhere in the world where I'm discriminated in that. In a very basic thing like that, like just sitting on the table with the Kenyans, it's a problem. They cannot join your table. You're not expected to join their table. So you'll find Kenyans squeezed in a corner there. Maybe you'll find maybe 10 Kenyans against a group of maybe 50, 100 Chinese on the other side. And then if you were to join the van, as rightly said, there's one actually who told me who was new, he didn't know what was going on, and he went into the van and he was told it's not possible to go with the van. So if the van is dropping and there's only one Chinese inside the van, you'll have to wait until the next trip. So there are small racial discrimination allegations in there that just make it difficult for Kenyans. Then you find there's also even the guys who are doing the actual construction. There's a big problem there. But those are the basics. The other main issues, you remember, Kisa, that when this contract was being signed, there was a clear agreement that there will be some sort of skills transfer between the Chinese contractors to the Kenyan staff. So you have trained more than 80 locomotive drivers who are called assistant shunting drivers, and there they are. Their job is just to sit and sit away, sit for 5 hours, go down to the coast, sit again, come 4 hours back, and do nothing. Yeah, and everything is in Chinese. I mean, all the gadgets are programmed.
So I was coming to
Chinese.
that everything is in Chinese, so that you're forced to learn the language before you can operate.
Most of them, if you go to Kenyatta University, they have, I think, an institute of Chinese language training. If you went there, you'll find most of the people who are studying there will be SGR employees. And if you don't understand Chinese, you are disadvantaged. You can't go very far. So if there are some places like they call it the dispatcher room. If you went in today, you'll find no Kenyan. And it's a very critical part of the operation. So if no Kenyan knows anything that is going in there, then you can be sure that the Chinese will remain a lot more relevant, and because they are more relevant, they'll keep staying on the ground. Most of them finished the construction work, but because they don't want to fly back home, they started with garbage collection, went into cooking, small manual jobs, and they're earning, of course, more. These guys are paid 40,000 every week for, I mean, as an allowance at the end of the week. So you can imagine, and we do not know actually the actual salary, because at the end of the week, if you are given a 40,000 allowance to just go and hang around, and all your accommodation is taken care of, many of the other costs are taken care of, they are extremely living way above, and that 40,000 is more or less the salary that a Kenyan will be getting. So it's really unfair. And then the other issue that now came up is what they are not telling the Kenyan government. So you find when we have the officials, which will be Kenya Railways and the others, you know, when you go there, you find a nice PR exercise. You think that these guys are very nice. I mean, they're always saluting. They're nice to deal with. And if they hear a top government official is coming, then they are on top of their game. But immediately, he leaves, then they go back to the normal situation. So it's a simple thing. Just need to send in there an NIS agent to somebody, and 3 days they'll come up with the route that is going on there. That is on the operation side.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at the issue of costs, right, that is a totally, I mean, it's mind-boggling that these gentlemen are being paid about 35 million a day, just to operate the railway. Remember, you know, I heard the Deputy President yesterday speak about the railway and said that running the SGR is not like doing a matatu.
Matatu business.
Yeah, which is okay, and that's a fair comment. But we have had a railway in this country before. It may not have been modern. Look at it from this perspective. You speak to the drivers who have been doing the meter gauge, who are maybe Kenyans, East Africans, most of them. They have been driving what is seen as a manual car, for instance. Now, if you're given an automatic car and you're coming from a manual car, it's like, I mean, it's a day's work. You'll be in there. So there's really nothing technical about, I mean, running the railway line from there. So if a driver is being paid 40,000, why would you tell us that the bill will come to 35 million? Because if you look at the bill, at the end of the day, all the costs, however you did it.
So the math does not add up.
It does not add up. It's not anywhere close to anything like that. I mean, maybe their costs per month will be a maximum of 100 million. So where is the other 900 million going?
Paul, it's a good thing that you're a business reporter as well. Generally, what will this mean for Kenyans in the next years to come, the cost that we are facing for this infrastructural project?
You see, what the government is not telling people is that for a project like the SGR, railway lines generally in the world, they are hardly profitable, especially the passenger lines. But you have to find a way of subsidizing that. But now, how far you are subsidizing is where the issue is.
Yeah.
Now, for our case here in Kenya, you find that the traffic is one way, Akisa. So you find all goods come from Mombasa. They come and terminate in Nairobi, or a few of them that are left will go to Uganda or our neighbors. So when the train is coming back, it's empty. There is nothing on it. So if you are doing the costing in Mombasa, you'll have to charge a price of per cargo. I mean, for every container, you'll charge them, factoring in the cost of going and coming back empty. The same way if you hired a car and it will take you to a place that they usually don't operate, when it is coming back empty, he has to factor in the fuel that he'll come with as a cost. So if you look at it as one way, you will not be saying the truth. So how do we factor in the cost of taking the train back? And then the other issue here is that how much cargo do we really have? I mean, if it's so much that we have produced in Kenya, be it maize, be it, how much can we actually take down to the cost? How much coffee do we have to take down to the cost? So it's not so much that is going out, most is coming in. So at the end of the day, the net effect is that the train is good for the Chinese because they are the ones who are bringing in most of the goods at the port and they're transporting them back to Nairobi. So it's a net win for the Chinese. For a Kenyan who is looking at what is really happening, you need just to look at the cost of goods. I mean, we heard that transportation is a major cost to go down by 40%, but has the cost of living gone down? Do we have this? Has it been translated?
It hasn't.
So if that has not happened, it means, yes, companies or people who do the transport business may have saved, but that is not really getting to the Kenyan taxpayer who is paying for this loan. Now, remember, this 1 billion that they are paying per month, what a few people have not understood, they think that is repaying the loan. Okay, so that is the cost of just paying somebody like a driver and a mechanic. So you've hired your driver for your car, and if it breaks down, the minor repairs. Remember, any cost above 5 million, they'll have to be reimbursed by Kenya Railways. So minor repairs, maybe like fixing small things that don't cost more than 5 million a month. So the rest of that will pass on to the taxpayer. And then at the end of the day, when it is 2020, we will now start repaying the 327 billion that we borrowed as loan. Now, when we get to that point, is when now the rubber will meet the road, because at that point, we need to have accumulated enough money to start repaying the loan.
But we are being told that by 2020, the loan would, the whole system would start repaying itself.
That is, I mean, you can say that is possible in terms of an operations perspective. You can say that we are generating enough money to be able to take care of our costs. But now, the moment you start repaying the loan, remember the loan also has interest. That becomes a totally different ballgame. Because like right now, they have tried to make sure that you force some cargo on the railway. Yeah, it makes sense. But then in a free market economy, you can't come up with kind of dictatorial tendencies of telling people you must use the railway or nothing. Yeah? And then remember, the success of our railway line is really dependent on what is happening in the other in the rest of the region. So if we do from Naivasha, imagine Akisa now, after the train gets to Naivasha, what happens? Yeah? Unless we are thinking about how do we move the train from Naivasha. Are we going to Kisumu? Are we going to Malaba? Now, from Malaba, we must be able to see what Uganda has done. So unless Uganda does something to be able to justify our course between Naivasha to Kampala, then
it will probably be a dead end.
Exactly. So even Chinese will refuse to fund it, and that is the discussion they're having. They will not be able to fund something that they are certain that it will not proceed. So, and the other thing that people have to understand is that the Chinese are using the Kenyan operation to be able to bargain for the rest of the business in the region.
Yeah.
Because like now with Uganda, they'll tell them, if you give us, if you allow us, we shall build the same standard like Kenyan standard, and then we shall be able to operate for you. So they are looking at shielding their business more than what really is coming to us. Now, Akisa, if you look at the quality of the trains, if I might just add, anybody, even the Court Secretary General will tell you, some of these trains are leaking. We have seen images, have video of oil is leaking. They are fairly old. So we didn't even get a modern train.
Paul, did we get a raw deal with this SGR?
From where we are coming from, it's a good deal. At least we have something that we've not had for a long time. But for the cost that we are paying, it's a total rip-off, because this is like double the cost. If you look at what is happening in Tanzania, what they built in Ethiopia, and you compare with what we have here, it's a shame. Yeah.
Well, from some of the reactions you've gotten on social media, something also very interesting came up. Those who live along the line say that their houses are now getting cracks because of things that are being blown up by the SGR. I don't know whether that's something you encountered while working on this story.
Yeah, there are a few other things that came up in terms of the environment that they're dealing with. That is one of them. But I think also their structures may. I mean, if you are having a freight train, unless you are living very far away from the line, you'll have some blow-off effect. So I think it's them who are living probably closer to the train than they should. Because there's nothing you can do once the train is coming. Even if you are living near JKIA, once the cargo plane lands, you'll have to feel it where you are. But having said that, Akisa, if you looked at some of the images of the wildlife that are being killed by the line that is coming, you see, when activists or environmentalists were asking questions about how do we protect the wildlife, they were told that the train will have sensors and it will be able to make sure that there is no collision with wildlife. And also told that, the line is very expensive because we are building sort of long bridges to make sure that there is space in between so that wildlife will not be affected. And that appeared to be a very reasonable thing to do. But now, if you look at what's happening, is that lions are being killed. There are like 5 buffaloes that have already died, 2 lions, and they're removed from the lines, and operation goes on as usual. So you can imagine at this rate, in terms of how many lions will die unless something really happens. And because the place is sort of a security environment, not very many people are allowed to go in there. So we really do not know what is going on.
I want us to wrap this up, but before we do, if this is not addressed, we haven't gotten any communication so far, be it from CRBC or the government. If this continues, especially the working conditions for the Kenyans at the SGR, what are we likely to see in the coming days?
I'm aware that there have been discussions. Maybe in the course of the day or tomorrow we'll see a comprehensive response from government, Ministry of Transport, Kenya Railways, in terms of the action they're going to take. Some of the issues also caught them off guard. They were really not aware that these things were happening. But the officials who should have known also did not just do their job. So we're expecting to see something like probably, we are starting investigations to look into it. But if it really gets to a level whereby some action is taken and the people who are doing the thing that they should not be doing maybe are taken back home, and justice sort of, we have a fair environment for everybody. That will be good. But other than that, the kind of contract that we have, we sort of don't have a say, because once you've given somebody a contract and told them you can hire whoever you want to hire, you can operate it the way you want. You cannot go back and say, okay, fine, I've given you my car, but you can only hire so and so to drive it. So it is them to sort of decide at what point do they feel safe that they can hand over the train to the Kenyan. But remember, the Chinese have a problem with trusting that Kenyans actually can be able to do what they do, because of maybe they will think that they are a little bit not as well trained as they want them to be, or some of the issues maybe because of their relationship and they want everything to be done.
But Kenyans went for training. Most of the people working there went for training.
Exactly. They were told some of them went to China for 6 months to be able to be trained. So we don't understand this fear of allowing Kenyans at least to start taking control. And then the other thing that you have to look at is that, I mean, Kenyans fly planes from here to London. They go to South Africa. Now Kenyans are going to fly, I mean, Kenya Airways planes to the US.
Yeah.
I mean, driving a train is such an easy task. I mean, it's lighter than even driving a bus to Mombasa. There's nothing really technical because some of these trains can actually be driven automatically from another location. So if you look at the drivers themselves who are driving, I mean, some of them are even sleeping while they're doing it, and the train is moving. So the signaling will work. Someone will give you an alert and be able to come. So not that you should not have extremely, it's a really technical skill, but it's not something that you can say Kenyans cannot do. Yeah.
Fantastic story, Paul. Thank you very much for coming into studio. Yeah. A good one there, and we hope something we'll continue to follow up on until something actually happens. As he says, we are likely to see reactions from the government, and on the other side, and of course, looking at the kind of contract that Kenya has with China, Paul says there's seemingly nothing much we can do about this. But let's hope and pray that something will be done. Once again, we spoke to Francis Atwoli, the Secretary General for KOTU, who says they're also trying to address this or seek help from the government. They've written to the Ministry of Labour, they've written to the Immigration Department, as well as the President, seeking audience with him. At this point, I want us to take a quick break. We still have a lot more lined up for you. Remember, 2:30 p.m. Robinson Okenya as well comes in with sports news, so don't go too far.